Dools.
Has.
During this absolute lockdown, one man can be seen to rise above it. Joe Exotic, and he is the Tiger King. We've watched it, and it is fucking crazy. Dools, just roll the intro. What's up, all you cool cats and kittens? Welcome to another episode of the More Cops on Duty podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Harry. With me, of always, is Carol Baskin, to my incredibly murdered husband, Edward Dools. Dools, how you doing this fine evening, sir?
Incredibly murdered. Yeah, I'm doing just fine, Has. Doing just fine.
Dools, we've both seen Tiger King, but before that, let's say that some random average Joe, some schmo, just stumbles on a podcast called More Cops on Duty and has no idea what it's about.
I would stop
What
him
is the
right
More Cops on
there
Duty podcast?
and say, you talk to Harrison Argyle, because that man, he knows how to describe podcast. He knows exactly what it does, what it is. And that he's the man to talk to. So, take it away.
That was pretty good. More Cops on Duty is your one-stop shop for anything movie, TV, and games related. We do 2 shows a week. We do Wednesday, which is your main show, which is your absolute all-in banter sort of episode. We go through all the latest news, reviews, and TV, movies, and games. And then we've got one Friday, which is just a predominantly review show, like what we're doing today, where we take something TV-related, film-related, or game-related. We digest it, and then we just absolutely go through it and dissect it. And this week, Dools, we're doing Tiger King.
I've been, we've been keen to get to this because I think we watched it pretty much when it came out. But then news,
We did?
not long after, also trickled out, also was leaked that they'd be doing a follow-up episode, like an after-show type thing where they would talk to, God, I guess you call them cast members, even though it's a documentary, but talking to the cast members. And, so that came out only the other day, and we've now since watched that, so I think we're all up to speed, as we should be, for our review.
So we can digest it. Absolutely. We can dissect it, is what I meant to say. But Dools, one thing I want to start with is this is obviously one of the biggest phenomenons in the world right now, right? Everyone's talking Tiger King. It actually just has been reported to get 34.5 million views.
It's unbelievable.
It's
That's nearing. I think Stranger Things hits like 45, and that's its peak.
It's huge. That's huge. So where were you, Dools, when you first heard about Tiger King?
Where was I? Well, like many,
and how did you come about it?
Like many people around the world right now, I was stuck at home. But so again, I think that's also a good reason why it's just doing so well, because like people are just hearing about it.
Absolutely.
You can imagine, even the people who still for some reason don't have a Netflix subscription might have been like, fuck it, like I got to see what this crazy shit's about. It just came from all the ridiculous amount of memes that I was seeing like just so many memes, and I'm like, all right, like this is enough. Like I gotta see what this is all about. Like, I've got so many shows in my backlog, so like it takes a special something to just go straight to the top of the list in must watches, and because it's also one of those shows where it's like we gotta be part of the conversation. It's like it's happening now.
Absolutely,
so,
it's a water cooler show.
Exactly. So we're all talking about it around the virtual water cooler at the moment, and it's and it's also just dominating pop culture, social media chatter in general at the moment, just because not much of substance is coming out. Films are being delayed, TV shows of any substance are also being delayed. So it was like a perfect storm with this pandemic and this show. Like it's and we'll get into this, I'm sure, but it's not especially remarkably made. Like in terms of
No, the
documentary
editing
production value,
is one to be desired.
in terms of the production value, I've seen, it's not. Yeah, I've seen much better documentaries, but its subject matter is so unbelievable, so compelling. Like it's just a fucking car crash in slow motion. You can't look away, and yeah. So I think we just got to get into it.
Absolutely, Dawes. Absolutely. I was the same as you. I just saw copious amounts of memes, and I saw a lot of reviews. I saw one summary of the show of just basically it's about this guy that runs an exotic zoo. I'm like, oh, that's cool, I guess. That's not that cool because there's animals in cages, which is pretty fucked up, especially exotic animals. And then I saw another one. It's just like, oh no, he's like got 2 husbands. This chick murdered her husband, and there's a guy with a lemur. And I'm like, oh, I'm fucking in. I'm 100% in. That unbelievable. But let's start off, Dools. Like, let's go into it. Joe Exotic. Do you think he should be in jail?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, he definitely should be in jail, despite the fact that, look, let's be honest, he's kind of charming. Like, he's fucking zany.
Is it the hair, Dools? It's
definitely the hair, but he's zaniness. He's kind of like, I'm a gay cowboy kind of persona. Even though, I mean, it's not really a persona. I mean, he genuinely is this fucking, lunatic. But, yeah, but I mean, so, it's easy to fall into those trappings of like, well, he's just such a quirky dude. Like, that's just Joe. But no, like, all in all, like, he did some horrific shit, and especially now in this last episode where it's, filmed on, I think only a couple of weeks ago, where it's a few months, maybe a year or so removed from when it was all filmed. Well, actually, yeah, no, it was definitely, so I think they revealed that it was almost filmed over 4 years, this thing. This series, or it had been filmed 4 years ago.
Really?
Well, I mean, because the dude with the, who was missing his teeth, and, Joe's ex-husband said, oh, no, they betrayed me in such a way, and I hadn't been doing this or that he said he'd had a daughter, a 4-year-old daughter, and I don't think we ever saw her in the show. So, I'm not sure. I think that kind of gave a hint to the timeline of the show. Like, there was definitely portions of, I think we'd also have to look at when Joe's other ex-husband, when he died, just to be certain, but
Travis, yep.
No, so should Joe be in prison? Yes. I mean, when it comes down to it, the horrific shit, the horrific stuff he did to some of those tigers and the way he treats the others, and yeah, I mean, yeah, you can't ignore it. It's like, just flagrant animal abuse. So, yeah.
Yeah. I like to break down Joe's character. So, of course, he runs an exotic zoo, which is in Oklahoma. Already batshit. Like, the amount of... Sorry, I thought I had my sound down, guys. Instead of putting it down, I put it all the way up. Good work, Harry. Already batshit insane. He's got, like, what do you say, 180 to 300 tigers? Or big cats is what he calls them, because he's got tigers, lions, ligers, everything.
Yeah.
Chimpanzees. The bit that got me was the chimpanzees' cages. They were like jail cells. It was fucked. He's not only got that, he's got a daily show called Joe Exotic TV that he has like 80 viewers to every night.
Yeah.
But he still has this whole production crew.
Yes.
For these 80 viewers.
Yeah, and I love the story behind that, which, so one of that longtime TV producer and host,
Rick Kirkman,
who stumbled upon Joe and was just enamored by, well, not enamored, but kind of like just mesmerized by the whole operation, and Joe himself. He says, like, yeah, just after that first sit down with him, that chat, I just, for the next, like, God knows how many years, maybe, God, was it 10? No, it can't be. Well, I don't know, just a long time. He says with the clothes on his back, he just then and there decided to stay at this place, live at this zoo, and but he was only able to film the show on Joe and his Zoo, like this reality show, which he thought would be a huge hit, and I'm sure it would have, like if it weren't for all that footage being destroyed. That would be a nightmare, by the way. That the trade-off was that he also had to produce Joe's web show for him. He's like, yeah, fine, you can film me and do all this shit, but you get your guys and your crew to, spruce up my web show and, turn that into a proper production as well. And he's like, all right, but that was like, he didn't give a shit about that. Like, Joe's stupid web show. He was like, no, I'm interested in the inner workings of this place and everything else. But I just thought that was hilarious. Like, Joe only has this professional production capacity because he just conned this guy into doing it for him, but for free.
Yeah, absolutely. He also has two husbands, or had two husbands, until one of the saddest parts of the show, which was Travis's death. They did allude to it in the show that he killed himself, though. They did allude to that. But we found out in the episode 8 when Joel McHale was interviewing, I can't remember, but the election campaign manager, he said that, no, he was just saying that there's no bullets in this auger, which is a type of gun. No bullets in this auger, and put it to his head and pulled the trigger and he died. Yeah, sorry
to clarify, you meant like we did know he killed himself in the other episode. You just mean we didn't know it was a suicide? We thought it was a suicide?
That's what I mean. Sorry, it wasn't a suicide.
Yeah, so I think I don't know.
We
if
did know he killed himself.
I don't know if they purposely misled us. I don't know why it would.
I think it did. I think it absolutely did.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a selling point for the show.
Maybe, yeah.
They would have edited this as if they're not doing that episode 8. They wouldn't have thought that this was going to become as big of a phenomenon as it is, right? You can't predict that shit.
Yeah.
34.5 million, no way. They did the episode 8 because of how huge it's been and how much conversations have been made.
Yeah.
That was purposely edited to be produced in a way that's a lot more dramatized than it actually was.
Yeah, I think you're probably right, yeah.
Which sucks. Let's go on to the second best character in this show, Dools. Carol fucking Baskin.
Jesus Christ.
And I'm going to ask you one question, point blank, Dools.
Carol fucking Baskin.
Point blank.
Yep.
I'm going to ask you it, and you got to give me a direct answer, honest answer. Did she kill her husband?
Yes, 110%. Yes. Has. Fucking just look that bitch in the eyes once and tell me she didn't do it. Jesus.
I loved it when she was mocking Joe about accusing her. Goes, and he's saying that I killed my husband. And you're like, dude, this isn't a thing to joke about. You absolutely murdered this guy.
She was happy to get into the nitty gritty, of it, talking to the host of this doco. And, hosting, quotations because we barely see the guy. By the way, dude, the guy's voice wigged me out every time I heard him speak. Like the guy who was making the documentary.
Same.
He sounded like Anthony Bourdain, like just like him. Yeah, and so she was like happy to talk about. Like he would ask her point blank. Did you put him in a meat grinder and feed him to your big cats? And she's like, no, because then that would mean a lot of chopping up. And have you seen our meat grinders? Have you seen how small they are? Yeah, I didn't use the meat grinder.
Yeah,
and it's like. She's like entertaining the theory and talking about like, no, I didn't do it that way. No, that's not how I did it. It's like, well, then
not that way.
How the fuck did you do it, bitch? How'd you do it?
Yeah, the way she phrased it was like, I didn't use that meat grinder.
Yeah, dude.
You're like,
I thought that was like a bit of a slip up.
You saying there's another meat grinder?
I actually thought that was like almost like a bit of a slip up of her giving herself a whack. She was like, no. Why would I do it that way? I didn't do it that way. No. Like I did it. Oh, you nearly got me. Like.
I thought that was a perfect way to end the first episode as well. That really, I liked the first episode. I wasn't fully, invested until the end of it. Because throughout the first episode, you're like, all right, this is batshit insane. Like, all these tigers and shit. I get it. I get, why people are interested. And at the end of it, it's like, oh no, Carol definitely killed her husband. That was it reminded me of the documentary. I think it's on Netflix called The Imposter. Have you heard that, Dawes? I think you did. You think you've seen it because you recommended it to me.
Yeah.
It's the one
the
where
one where like some Spanish kid replaces some American kid.
That exact one. Yes. So this American kid goes missing, and never seen again. And about five or so years later, this like French guy, basically pretended to be this kid, and the whole family took him in, and acted as if he was that kid. But they all knew, and he's just like, they all knew. I don't know why they didn't say anything. And then like this is like halfway through the documentary, and he's just like, and then it just hit me, they killed him. And then it just like cuts, and you're like, holy shit. And it really reminded me of that. It's like Carol killed her husband.
Yeah. So I think it was just, and that's what it was great at in general, because while, we mentioned that the production value of this I thought was really sloppy. So I'm just going to quickly touch on, the cons in terms of, kind of the meta nature of the show, which has nothing to do with its subject matter. Because I don't think you can fault its subject matter. Like, it is utterly interesting and fascinating and bonkers. Like, it's just
absolutely
you'd be hard pressed to find someone who just couldn't like not watch this and just be like, okay, I gotta fucking see what happens next in this wacky world. But no. So I think I would find it would often retread and reiterate things that had only gone over like earlier in the same episode, and it wouldn't just be like a recap of like, okay, just to refresh you, just to remind you about this and that, we're going to go over this again. No, it'd be like, it's almost like when they were editing, they forgot that they had it, that they talked about it before. Because it was just like the exact same kind of like setup, if you know what I mean. So I think,
right.
So I think one example would be like, I don't know, like the death of Travis. Like, we had just had, and plus it would almost like segue in weird ways. It would be like the first half of the episode would be looking at Doc Antle, I think his name was, and talking about how he underpays these people, and how his park/zoo is like almost cult-like, the way he lures these girls here and convinces them to stay, and they get Stockholm syndrome, shit like that.
Yeah, that was pretty messed up.
Oh yeah, it's definitely a fucking cult. But and then it would just go right into so this is how Travis died. It's like, whoa, like what? Where's the segue? Where's the setup? Like, you gotta ease me in. Like, it was like, this is not a simple scene transition. Like, we're going to a completely different stage. Like, I feel like, it would have been much, far better structured if it was like, okay, this episode is about Doc Antle and his farm, his fucking park. And then the next is about Travis and some other things. And so I thought it was all over the shop, editing-wise, and, that threw me off a little bit, but I mean, it's a nitpick at most, but just because I think, any other documentary about maybe something, maybe a slightly drier subject matter, I don't think would have, gotten away with it. But I think in this case, it's like it almost like suits the zany nature of what the documentary's about. The fact that it's just all over the shop. Right. So I kind of was like, oh well, this is what it is. This is the experience. But did you
I feel
think the same thing when watching it, that it was all kind of sloppily put together?
Yeah, I felt like it was edited by a child. I felt like all the cuts were just so terrible. The production, I agree with you, the production was piss poor. Like it was as if they spent like, I don't know, $5,000 on the entire production of this show.
Yeah.
I agree with you. But I also wholeheartedly agree with you that like, it doesn't stick out as much as how fascinating the subject matter is. It's like you'll bypass all that bullshit to just like focus on Joe and focus on this fucked up story. But yeah, absolutely. There's a few things that I also wanted to touch on, Dools.
Please touch.
Especially back to Carol Baskin. Is it just me, Dools? Is her new husband one of the weirdest motherfuckers you'll ever meet in your entire life?
Sorry, is who? I need that once more.
Sorry, Carol Baskin's new husband.
Yes.
One of the weirdest motherfuckers you'll ever meet.
So I already thought he looked like a fucking lizard has. The man looks like a lizard. maybe a gecko or something. But then when they showed, and with no warning, by the way, when they showed those wedding photos.
The wedding photos?
Oh, no. That wasn't fair, dude. To just drop those out of nowhere. And then to kind of they glanced over them. There wasn't even a comment on them. They were just talking about their relationship. And then, boom, there it is. It's right there. It's right up there on the screen. And it's like, hold on. And you're barely given a moment to digest it, to process what you've just seen. So I think to visualize for the audience, and if you haven't, by the way, if you haven't seen the documentary, what are you doing? You need to watch this. But if you haven't seen these images,
too late now.
If you haven't seen these images of me, I won't spoil anything about the documentary. Just type in Carol Baskin and husband, Google images. Let's just see, because I just want to get a refresher. I think she's in some leopard print or something.
He's dressed as a tiger and on all fours, and one of them with a leash around his neck.
Yeah, and she's holding the leash. I mean, dude, yeah, it's rough. Oh yeah, here it is. I've just found it. Yeah, oh my god. Yeah, and he actually seems like one of the few sane ones. The funny thing is that he seemed like one of the very few sane ones in this documentary. Like he was always taking lead in the interviews for the documentary about all the legal stuff, and he clearly knew what he's talking about. He might have had maybe a bit of legal background himself, and the financials and all that stuff, and but then it would just it would kind of gloss over this image of him, on all fours and a leash around his neck, and it's like, well, all right, I guess we're back in topsy-turvy world, but yeah, I mean, Jesus, man, I don't know, I mean, but I think it's also good to point out about Carol and her park is, I mean, it's just as bad as Joe's operation. Like, for them to try and, paint it as anything different, it's like, no, you're still making a profit off people coming and going. Plus, you have blatant slave labor in the form of volunteers. And I couldn't believe, they had, these tiers, these ranks through with the T-shirts, the coloured T-shirts, as to how long people had volunteered. And they were like, oh, yeah, if you've been here for 5 years or more, doing free volunteer work, you would get the Dark Navy shirt or whatever it was. There are all these people in these Dark Navy shirts, and it's like, what do you do with your life? Like, how do you...
exactly.
5 years of this... I mean, and she's conning people into working for her for free. Like, I mean, it's all it would take. Joe could just... He would just have to change how he marketed his park. Not so much as a zoo, but more of a... more of a rescue enclosure type thing, and he could pull off the exact same thing. Because, I mean, the difference between Carol's Park and Joe's is, I mean, what is the difference, really?
There's nothing. I've got that here of just another park. Same with Doc's. Don't you reckon?
Yeah.
Like, they're all just... I don't give a fuck if you say the word sanctuary. It's tigers in cages.
100%, yeah. And actually, more often than not, Joe made this point, and Images backed it up. He's backed his claim up. You look at Carroll's Park, they were in much smaller enclosures, and the park was not well kept at all. Like, it was often overgrown in areas.
Oh, the mud and stuff, right?
Yeah, so I mean, he actually made a good point about the fact that I actually think the tigers were living in better conditions at his park compared to Carroll's. Treatment-wise, however, I think, we could get into it, but I think, he definitely... it was made to seem like he had a great love and respect for these tigers, and I'm sure he did at one stage, but then you'd hear about what he'd do off camera, and, it's just like, well, killing them just to make more room at the park. I mean, just horrific stuff. So,
yeah, it's terrible, and definitely deserves to be in jail. With that being one of the parts why he's there, and it really shows how you can absolutely just throw away your life if you do work at one of these parks. Like Saf, remember Saf? He got his arm ripped off.
Yep.
That was, I believe that was in the first episode. That was fucking vivid, because they show you it. They show you like her just lying on the ground and her arm's just fucked.
Yeah.
His arm's just fucked. And like the camera just rolls up and just films him.
Yeah.
It's nuts, but again, it's reality, man. You know, you're gonna cage these like killing machines. What do you expect? Should we touch on Jeff Lowe, Dools?
I think we should. Yeah.
What's your opinion on Jeff Lowe?
Jeff Lowe, yeah, he's an interesting cat. I think.
Nice.
Well, so he was. So I think he came in as some sort of angel investor. Like, you know, he came in with the promise of money and bailing Judd and helping out the park. I think in exchange for a considerable share in the park, and then, you know, we obviously see that end up resulting in him just outright owning it. But yeah, I mean, he was just another, you know, colourful character who's doing, you know, cruel shit with his animals. I mean, he would take tiger cubs on fucking road trips to Vegas and trick girls into coming back to his hotel room with his girlfriend to see these tiger cubs. So I mean, and dude, let's be honest. I mean, his girlfriend's so hot. So he's doing it right, old Jeff. And this nanny they got, he made the joke that, like, look, if you're getting a nanny, to his wife, like, if you're getting a nanny for a kid, I'm picking the nanny. And it's like some stunning 10 out of 10. Like, oh. But yes, I think but I mean, he was shady as hell. And I mean, can we really believe what he says? I mean, you know, the way some of the stuff he says in this latest episode when he's talking to Joel McHale, like, oh, you know, I was paying to be a villain, blah blah blah. They needed a villain for their show, and you know, I was the one who came in and gave Joe money, and like Joe was the one who made reckless decisions, and you know, it was all Joe. It was Joe. So I mean, it's still quite hard to know who to believe, but at the same time, Joe's in prison. Yeah. He's not. So I mean, if he truly did some bad shit that was gonna get him thrown in jail, I mean, then again, did he kind of deal with the feds to give info on Joe to spare himself jail time? Maybe. Yeah. So, Jeff Lowe, I mean, yeah, I'm just trying to think, like, yeah. Well, what about you, Haz? Thoughts on Big Jeff?
Yeah, I feel the same. He's an absolute baller. But did he steal the zoo? I don't technically think so, and I think that the zoo is actually a lot better off, especially from the latest episode. I can't remember his name, but the head zookeeper is just like, yeah, things are just calm now. Like, there's no one just getting fired for random, just because Joe felt like it. And it's just being run as a normal business right now, which is what it should be, you know? And you could tell that, like, he even said it during the show, is like, to back up your point, Dools, that Joe did have this love and respect for the Tigers initially, but then he started going after this fame and fortune and everyone to know who Joe Exotic was, and the Tigers fell by the wayside. And he said, he's just like, I'm really fucking glad I was here.
Yeah,
because who knows what would have happened to those Tigers?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I know what you mean by he's like not that trustworthy. He's a shady dude. He is, but I think I trust him more than I trust Joe Exotic. 'Cause Joe's a weapon. like he's an absolute beast. But that's just last point I want to touch on, Dools, before we get out of here and play some Warzone. Joe Exotic running for president. Would you support that?
Wow. I mean, dude, if one criminal made it to the White House, I don't see why another couldn't. You know? You know what I'm saying, man?
I know what you're saying.
And I think Joe's hair would give Trump's a run for its money. So
I agree.
Yeah, look, I think that would be, and look, he's run at the governorship was a noble one. I think he got like 25% of the vote or something, which is like not a small margin.
That's pretty nuts.
So yeah, I mean the chances of him becoming becoming president has. I mean, look, in this day and age, I wouldn't rule it out. I really wouldn't. Oh, and we should also
Fair
mention
enough.
Trump is looking at pardoning him. So, would
Yeah, I saw that.
he pardon his
That's nuts.
future presidential rival? Who knows?
He's so innocent. I saw the Tigers being closer big. Dools, on that note, do you want to close us out?
Sure thing has. This has been the Mall Cops, the Tiger King in review episode. Thanks for joining us. Catch you on the flip side, as they say.
Where can they find us, Dools?
Oh, right, yeah, all that shit. Fuckers, come on. They know this. They're there. They're there through thick and thin for the other episodes. Instagram, Twitter, Spotify, YouTube now. YouTube? We're on YouTube?
I think I know a solution. We'll see. Give me a couple of days. So,
Working
yes.
Working on it. We're posting on Instagram
Working on it,
again.
absolutely.
When it makes sense to. So, yeah.
Great. And how good's that dead air? Until next time, thank you so much for listening, and we're off duty.